Welcome to this narrated PowerPoint presentation that delves into a critical aspect of church development, the distinction between easy growth and expensive growth. In religious communities, the journey toward expansion and increased congregational impact can take various paths. By becoming familiar with these two approaches, you will better be equipped to lead your church toward numerical and spiritual growth. This presentation should help you make decisions that will align the congregation's unique vision and mission. Let's explore the details of church growth and discover the pathways that can lead to sustainable and meaningful growth. What should you expect to learn in this presentation? Well, you will learn why churches stop growing. We'll examine this in just a moment. And then the results of easy and expensive growth. We will study easy growth as it's compared to expensive growth in 9 key issues. And then there will be some application by way of review. Here is a question. Why do churches stop growing? Well, it's not a knowledge issue because we have more information today than we have ever had before. So it's not a knowledge issue. It's not a location issue. Rick Warren and Saddleback Church moved 58 times before buying property. He jokes, we have a destination disease. It's not a spiritual issue either. Some of the most spiritual pastors see very little growth in their church. It's not a personality issue. Megachurch pastors such as the late Charles Stanley was not dynamic. And Jack Hayford, again a deceased pastor, was very laid back. John MacArthur has a different personality. He's scholarly. The challenge is to enhance the personality you have because church growth is not an issue about personality. It's not a laity problem either, for there are many lay people who are just waiting for the pastor to lead them. Well, why do churches stop growing? Well, the answer is this. Churches stop growing when the costs become too high. Now, let's talk about easy and expensive growth. Easy growth requires little commitment and it uses few people, while explosive growth requires a great deal of commitment and it includes a lot of people. Dwight David Eisenhower once said, there are no victories at bargain prices. So expensive growth has a price, and it's a steep price tag. Here is a comparison of easy growth versus expensive growth. In the center of the slide, you'll notice the issues: money, change, commitment, leaders, decision-making, motivation, learning, structure, and relationships. This slide and the slides that will follow will contrast and compare easy growth and expensive growth. They stand at opposite extremes on these 9 key issues. Let's look at the money issue first. Money is an extremely important part of any church, and I want to encourage you to preach on stewardship and those kinds of issues because they are important. Easy growth requires few dollars. Little money is needed when there's a small vision and lazy people. Just the opposite of true is true of expensive growth. Many dollars are needed. The church is constantly seeking revenue streams because the numerous ministries the church is pursuing. Too many Christians say, God will provide. The good news is He already has provided. He gives to His people. The bad news is that many times His people don't want to let it go. Easy growth requires little change. Its philosophy is do not rock the boat when it comes to change. But expensive growth promotes extensive change. We cannot become what we need to be by remaining what we are. When presented with the call to change, people ask many times, what will this do for me? They should ask, what will this do for others? John Maxwell writes about 3 laws concerning change. The first is the law of self-interest, and it says, people change for selfish reasons quicker than for important reasons. When presented with the call to change, people often ask, what do my friends think? Not, what does the Lord think? Then there is the law of influence. It says, people change because of the influencer more than the issue. When presented with a call to change, people ask, is this our idea or is this their idea? The third law that John Maxwell mentions is the law of ownership, and it says, people change when they feel the need and they have a part in it. How do you help people change? Well, when you cast vision, you can do the following. It helps them believe that the idea is theirs. This relates to the law of ownership. When this is true, they say, look what we're doing. 2, go to the influencers of the church and get them to buy into the vision before you share it widely. This relates to the law of influence that we mentioned earlier. Help them see it will benefit them. This relates to the law of self-interest. Commitment is another one of these issues that we want to compare and contrast. Easy growth requires very little commitment. Expensive growth requires a great deal of commitment. Commitment is the key to every great congregation. Sustained growth in numbers is a result of growth in commitment. Work on your own commitment first, and that of the church, before you go after a new person. A successful pastor is growing the level of commitment of the people. The goal is to increase the commitment, not the crowd who attends. Easy growth requires few leaders, but expensive growth demands many leaders. There are 2 types of leaders. First, leaders who have followers. They add leaders. And then there are leaders who raise up leaders. They multiply leaders. Here is a Maxwell leadership lesson, and I quote, those who are closest to me determine my level of success. Therefore, those around me will make me or break me. The smaller the size of the church, the more the people seek the pastor's influence. Larger sized churches have image influence, but smaller churches have relational influence. Close quotes. A pastor cannot lead churches the same way at every stage of church growth. The average size of a church in America is less than 100. To lead a church of 200 or 300, you can't lead the same way that you did in leading a church of 75 or 100. As a church leader, if I need the followers to give me their approval, to stroke my ego, to build my esteem, I can't lead them. In this way, a minister cannot meet the needs of the congregation and his own needs at the same time. You must love your congregation and love them more, but need them less. When you reach the place where you do not have to survive, then you can lead. You can then make right decisions rather than the ones that are the most pleasant. Easy growth requires natural and logical decisions, whereas expensive growth makes decisions that are hard, that are difficult. A church pastor once said, and I quote, again and again, the impossible problem is solved when we see that the problem is only a tough decision waiting to be made. Close quotes. Now let's look at another issue, and that is the issue of motivation. Easy growth in terms of motivation is emotional based, whereas expensive growth requires character. That is, we do what is right more than doing what feels good. Robert Thornton Henderson once said, and I quote, "Most of the significant things done in the world, they were done by persons who were either too busy or too sick. There are few ideal and leisurely settings for the disciplines of growth." Close quote. Now let's talk about learning. Easy growth stops learning or repeats what worked in the past. Expensive growth learns how to do new things. You've heard the old adage, if I always do what I've always done, I will always get what I always got. Marshall McLuhan has said this, and I quote him, "Our age of anxiety is in great part the result of trying to do today's job with yesterday's tools and with yesterday's concepts." Close quotes. John Maxwell observes, and I quote, "Successful leaders recognize that developing leadership skills is a lifetime pursuit." In a study of 90 top leaders in all fields, Bennis and Nanus found this: it is the capacity to develop and improve their skills that distinguishes leaders from their followers. Close quotes. Leaders are perpetual learners. If you stop growing, you're history. Now let's take a look at structure. Easy growth loves to maintain a comfortable structure, but expensive growth often adapts an uncomfortable structure. The difference between good organizations and bad organizations is structure. Here are a few areas to consider if you are willing to take a look at your structure. Number one, what are the sacred cows? What do people hold on to, even though it doesn't work? 2, what's the statement of your purpose? What's your vision or your mission? What's the budget? You can tell what people value by looking at their budget. Number 4, their personnel. Who is the paid staff? And who are unpaid staff members, but really are staff members? And number 5, music. Streamline the structure. I've had the opportunity of working with 2 Baptist associations, and in both of those associations we were able to streamline our structure. In one particular association that I served in North Carolina, we had 25 committees, and we were able to streamline the structure to reduce 25 committees to 4 teams. In the association that I had the privilege of leading here in Kentucky, we were able to streamline 29 committees into 4 teams. It can be done. Our structure is very important. And then last, relationships. Easy growth allows you to maintain distance and superficial relationships, but not expensive growth. Expensive growth requires close and intimate relationships. John Maxwell says, quote, "You can impress people from a distance, but you can only impact them close up, especially develop strong relationships with the key leaders in the congregation." Close quotes. Now, on the next few slides, I want to share with you some review questions. On the next 3 slides, we're going to be looking at some review questions, and you can rate yourself on this scale: seldom, sometimes, usually. So as you read these questions, use this evaluation tool: seldom, sometimes, usually. Question number 1, I'm willing to make financial sacrifices to keep growing. Is that true of you usually, sometimes, or seldom? Question number 2, I'm willing to make changes to keep growing. How would you evaluate yourself? Seldom, sometimes, usually. The third question, I'm willing to make commitments to keep growing. How do you rate yourself? On the next 2 slides, we will continue our review questions, and you will use this evaluation tool, seldom, sometimes, usually, to rate yourself. Question number 4. I'm willing to empower other leaders to keep growing. Number 5, I am willing to make difficult decisions to keep growing. Number 6, I'm willing to go forward based on character, not emotion. How'd you do on these 3 questions, using the rating scale I suggested earlier? And here are 3 more questions. I am determined to learn new and better ways to keep growing. And then, I desire the structure to complement change so we can keep growing. And the last review question, I'm willing to spend time raising up key leaders in order to keep growing. Those are profound questions, but they need to be raised first in your own life and then in the life of the congregation. Some of these questions would be applicable. In this narrated PowerPoint, I've offered some insights into the dynamics of church growth, especially highlighting the distinctions between easy growth and expensive growth. Easy growth offers quick results, but it may lack the depth and sustainability that expensive growth can provide. On the other hand, expensive growth demands substantial investment, but often yields lasting impact. By understanding easy and expensive growth, church leaders can navigate the challenges and opportunities, steering their church forward toward a healthy and purposeful future. This is the end of this presentation.